He showed up before she even lifted her hand to knock, and that was the moment Emily realized something was different, something she couldn't quite name yet. She stood on the small porch, breath caught in her throat, wondering how he had known she was there at all. The door had swung open as if pulled by a quiet instinct, or something even stronger. Ethan looked at her like he had been waiting all along. Emily had not seen him in almost a year. And yet here he was, standing in the doorway of the place where every memory between them still lived like an echo. She felt her heart jump before she could stop it. She hadn't planned to come back. She had only meant to drive through town, maybe glance at the house from a distance, maybe remind herself she was finally over everything that had happened. But grief has a strange way of pulling people home. And losing her mother had left a silence so deep that even the roads she took felt different. Emily had reached the porch out of some quiet pull, not even knowing if Ethan still lived here. But the second he opened that door, she understood that time had not erased a single thing. Emily, he breathed, almost like her name was something he had been holding on to. She managed a soft nod. "Hi, Ethan." Neither moved at first. The warm air between them felt heavy with moments they had never spoken about. Moments they had once run from. Ethan stepped aside gently. "Come in," he said. If that's why you're here." She hesitated, not because she didn't want to step inside, but because she wasn't sure she could trust her own heart. It had taken so long to quiet down after him. Would walking in undo all that work? But then she saw it. The small framed photograph of her mother still sitting on the side table inside. He had kept it. Even after everything. That alone made her step over the threshold. The house smelled the same as it always had. Warm wood. Fresh coffee. A hint of old books that had never been thrown away. "You look tired," he said softly. She didn't expect kindness. Not from him. Not after the way she had left. Her eyes stung, but she forced a small smile. "It's been a long few weeks." He nodded, the way a person nods when they understand something without needing a single explanation. "I heard about your mom," he said. I'm really sorry, Em." The sound of her nickname made her chest ache. No one had called her that in months. She sat on the old couch, hands clasped tightly. The same couch where they had once planned dreams that never happened. "You didn't have to keep her picture up," she whispered. Ethan looked away for a moment, as though steadying himself. "I didn't keep it for her," he said quietly. "I kept it for you. Because I thought, maybe one day you'd come back. And I didn't want you to feel like everything was gone." Emily didn't know how to answer that. Her throat tightened. She had left because she thought distance would solve everything. That if she could just move far enough away, the memories wouldn't hurt so much. But sitting here now, she realized something painfully honest. The memories didn't hurt. The unfinished pieces did. Ethan sat across from her, his expression gentle but unsure. "Why did you come today?" he asked. Emily took a long breath. "I don't know," she admitted. "I was driving, and suddenly I was here. And it felt like something was pulling me." Ethan's eyes softened in a way she remembered all too clearly. "I'm glad you're here," he said. "Even if you don't know why yet." The word yet hung between them. Emily swallowed. There were so many things she wanted to say. So many things she had avoided feeling. But before she could respond, a soft rumble of thunder echoed outside, the sky darkening in a way that felt strangely symbolic. The world was shifting. And so was she. Ethan rose and walked to the window, watching the first drops fall. "You came at the exact moment the storm started," he said, almost to himself. "Like you knew it was coming." Emily stared at him. "No," she murmured. "It feels more like you knew." He turned, meeting her eyes with a look she hadn't seen in years. A look filled with something unspoken and careful. "Emily," he said quietly, "if you're here because something brought you back, then maybe it wasn't just the storm." Her heart trembled. Something was happening. Something neither of them understood yet. And Emily felt the first flicker of fear. And hope. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. The rain began to fall harder, tapping against the windows like a quiet urgency. Emily looked down at her hands. and finally whispered the question she had been afraid to ask. "Ethan, what if I wasn't supposed to leave in the first place?" His breath caught. And in that silence, Emily sensed that everything she thought she knew was about to change. Emily hadn't meant to say it out loud. The words had slipped from somewhere deeper than thought, carrying years of weight with them. Ethan didn't answer right away. He just watched her with a stillness that made the room feel even smaller, even quieter. Outside, the rain grew heavier, curtain-like, as though the world was trying to push them into this moment and seal the door behind them. He said softly, "You left because you needed space. I understood that. I still do." She looked up at him, her eyes tired but searching. "But understanding something," she whispered, "doesn't make it hurt any less." Ethan's jaw tightened for a moment. He wasn't angry, just remembering. Remembering the night she had walked out, suitcase rattling behind her, tears she refused to let him wipe away. He walked back toward her now, slow and careful, like he wasn't sure if getting too close would break her, or break him. "Can I sit?" he asked. She nodded. He lowered himself beside her, leaving just enough space to be respectful but close enough to feel the warmth she hadn't forgotten. Emily clasped her fingers together. "I didn't come to reopen old wounds," she said. "I swear I didn't." He shook his head. "You didn't reopen anything," he murmured. "Some things don't close just because time passes." His voice trembled slightly on the last words, and Emily felt it. She let out a shaky breath. "When Mom got sick," she said, "I kept thinking about everything I hadn't said to her. Everything I hadn't said to you. And then, when she was gone, it felt like the whole world tilted. Like nothing was steady anymore." Ethan nodded, his eyes gentle. "Grief makes everything feel lopsided," he said. "It twists things. It shows you pieces you didn't look at before." Emily glanced at him, surprised at how much he seemed to understand. "Is that what happened with us?" she asked quietly. "Did we twist things too much?" Ethan let out a slow, thoughtful breath. "I don't think we twisted things," he said. "I think we loved each other without knowing how to handle the corners." She smiled faintly at his choice of words. "The corners," she repeated. "Yeah," he said. "The sharp parts. The parts we ignored because we thought everything else would smooth them out." Emily leaned back against the couch, her shoulders sinking. "I thought leaving would protect us," she whispered. "I know," he replied. "But you never had to protect me from you." His voice cracked just enough to make her heart twist. She looked at him carefully now. The way he held his hands, the tension in his shoulders, the quiet strength in his posture. "Ethan," she said, "you opened the door before I even reached for it." He blinked, a small smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "I heard your footsteps," he said. "I recognized the rhythm." "After almost a year," she whispered, almost disbelieving. His smile faltered into something softer. "You don't forget the sound of someone you loved." Those words hit her harder than the thunder outside. Emily felt something warm swell inside her chest. Something she thought she had buried miles ago. But before she could speak, another crack of thunder shook the house. The lights flickered once, twice, then steadied again. Ethan stood. "Let me check the fuse box," he said. That storm came in fast. He walked toward the hallway, but halfway there he paused, turning back to her with an expression she couldn't read. "Emily, don't leave." "Not yet." She swallowed hard. "I won't," she whispered. He gave a relieved nod and disappeared down the hall. Emily exhaled slowly, pressing a hand to her chest. The house felt alive with memories. Soft laughter in the kitchen, whispered promises in the quiet hours, stubborn arguments that always ended with someone trying not to smile. And yet, tonight felt different. Calmer. Older. Like both of them had been reshaped by the time apart. She stood, walking to the window. Rain hammered against the glass, running in fast streams that blurred the outside world. Her own reflection stared back. A woman who looked tired, yes, but also braver than before. She turned when she heard Ethan's footsteps returning. "The power's fine," he said. "Just a surge." He brushed a bit of dust from his hands, then looked at her with a softness that made her feel suddenly unsteady. "What?" she asked, confused by his expression. He hesitated, then took a careful step toward her. "When you left," he said quietly, "I wasn't just sad. I was scared. I thought, maybe I wasn't someone worth staying for." Her breath caught. "Ethan. I'm not saying that to make you feel guilty," he said quickly. "I'm saying it because seeing you here now, standing in this house again, is doing something to me I can't even explain." Her eyes softened. "What is it doing to you?" she asked gently. He looked at her for a long, trembling second. "It's making everything inside me wake up again." Emily felt a warmth spread through her, intense and frightening in its honesty. But before either of them could say another word, a sudden knock hit the front door. Sharp, unexpected, and out of place in the storm. Emily and Ethan both froze. Someone was outside. At this hour. In this weather. And Emily felt a strange chill run through her. Who could possibly be here now? For a moment, neither of them moved. The knock came again. 3 firm taps, steady and deliberate, cutting through the sound of rain like a message meant for them alone. Ethan exchanged a glance with Emily. His expression tightened, not in fear, but in that careful alertness he always had when something unexpected happened. "I'll get it," he said quietly. Emily nodded, though her pulse quickened. There was something strange about that knock, something that didn't match the storm outside or the quiet, vulnerable moment they had just shared. Ethan walked to the door, paused, and opened it slowly. Standing on the porch was an older woman, raincoat soaked, hair plastered to her forehead, breathing a little too fast from the storm. But Emily recognized her instantly. "Mrs. Hawthorne?" Emily stepped forward, surprise coloring her voice. "What are you doing out in this weather?" Her mother's closest friend. Her neighbor for nearly 2 decades. The woman who used to bring fresh peach pie every summer. Mrs. Hawthorne managed a thin smile. "Emily, dear. I was hoping I'd find you here." Ethan blinked, clearly taken aback. "You know she's here?" he asked. Mrs. Hawthorne nodded, wiping raindrops from her face. "I tried calling, but the storm must have knocked out the cell towers on the south side. When I drove past her mother's house and saw her car was gone, I came here. I didn't know where else she would go." Emily stepped closer, concern rising. "Is everything okay?" The older woman hesitated. A hesitation heavy enough to make Emily's stomach twist. "I didn't want to worry you," Mrs. Hawthorne said gently. "But earlier today, while I was sorting through some of your mother's things, I found something. Something I think she meant for you." Emily blinked. "For me?" Mrs. Hawthorne nodded and reached into the deep pocket of her raincoat. She pulled out a small sealed envelope. Cream-colored, edges slightly worn, but unmistakably in her mother's handwriting. Emily's breath hitched. Her mother had written her a letter. She hadn't known. No one had told her. Her mother had been so tired near the end, barely able to hold a pen. But the envelope was real. And the handwriting was unmistakable. Soft loops, gentle slants, the same way she used to write birthday notes and grocery lists. Emily's fingers trembled as she reached for it. "She must have written it before things got worse," Mrs. Hawthorne said softly. "I found it tucked inside one of her recipe books. I thought, you should have it as soon as possible." Emily stared down at the envelope, heart thudding. Her mother's name. Her name. The date written out carefully, telling her the letter had been written only a few days before the hospital stay. Emily swallowed hard. "Thank you," she whispered. I don't even know what to say." "You don't have to say anything tonight," Mrs. Hawthorne replied, touching Emily's arm gently. "Just read it when you're ready. And Emily." She paused. "Your mother loved you more than you'll ever understand. This letter, it's full of that." Emily felt tears gathering, burning at the corners of her eyes. Ethan stepped forward quietly. "Mrs. Hawthorne, would you like to come in for a moment? Dry off." The older woman shook her head. No, I need to get home before the roads get worse. I just needed to make sure Emily got this." She pulled her raincoat tighter, offered one more warm smile, and hurried back into the night. Ethan closed the door gently, turning back to find Emily standing in the middle of the room, still staring at the envelope like it was something fragile and powerful all at once. He said softly, "you don't have to open it right now. Emily didn't answer. Her mother's handwriting felt like a touch from a world she could no longer reach. A world she wasn't sure she was ready to face tonight. She sat slowly on the couch, the envelope resting in her palms. Ethan sat beside her but didn't crowd her. He waited, quiet and steady, the same way he used to when she needed time. After a moment, Emily whispered, "I didn't think she had enough strength to write anything. I thought everything I needed to hear from her. I heard already." Ethan watched her gently. "Maybe she saved something for when you were ready," he said. "She knew you better than anyone." Emily ran her thumb over her mother's handwriting. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if it's something heavy? Something I wasn't prepared for?" "Then we take it one sentence at a time," Ethan said quietly. She glanced at him, surprised by the "we." He didn't pull it back. He didn't correct himself. He just held her gaze with the kind of sincerity she had once trusted with her whole heart. For a moment, Emily felt something inside her shift again. The same feeling she'd had when the door opened before she knocked. The same sense that she wasn't here by accident. But before she could open the letter, a sudden flash of lightning cut through the room, followed by a deep rumble that made the windows shake. Emily tightened her grip on the envelope. "Maybe," she whispered, "maybe I should read it. I don't want to wait anymore." Ethan nodded slowly. "Whenever you're ready." Emily took a breath. A long, trembling breath. And slipped her thumb under the sealed flap. But before she could open it, the lights flickered again. Then abruptly went out, plunging the house into darkness. Emily gasped softly. The storm had swallowed the power. And the unopened letter sat heavy in her hands. The darkness felt sudden and absolute. Emily froze, the unopened letter held tightly against her chest as the storm pressed against the house from all sides. Ethan stood slowly. "Hold on," he said calmly. "I've got some candles in the kitchen." She heard him move carefully through the shadows. A drawer opened. A match flicked. And then a small warm glow filled the room, soft, flickering, and strangely comforting. Ethan set a candle on the table beside her. "You okay?" he asked. Emily nodded, though her heart was beating a little too fast. "I just didn't expect the lights to go out right when I was about to read it." Ethan eased down beside her, the candlelight softening his features. "Storms have timing," he said gently. "Sometimes they interrupt the things we're afraid to face." Emily let out a shaky breath. "Or force us to," she whispered. The envelope felt heavier than ever. Her mother's handwriting glowed faintly in the candlelight, and something about it, something tender and familiar, pulled at her heart. Ethan watched her quietly, waiting without pushing. "I want to read it," she finally said. "But, can you stay here? Just while I do." His expression softened. "Of course," he said. "I'm not going anywhere." Emily nodded and slowly began to open the envelope. The paper tore with a soft, delicate sound like the beginning of something she wasn't ready for but needed anyway. Inside was a folded letter, written in her mother's soft slanted script. Emily's breath trembled as she opened it. She read the first line silently. "My sweet Emily." Her throat tightened instantly. Ethan noticed and placed a steadying hand on the couch, close enough for her to feel the warmth but far enough to give her space. She continued reading in silence. Her mother wrote about simple things at first, how proud she was of Emily, how she wanted her to know she had never been alone, how every difficult year had been worth loving her through. Emily's breath shook, and she lifted a hand to her mouth. Emily whispered, voice breaking. She wrote this knowing she was fading. Ethan nodded gently. His eyes shone with sympathy, not pity. "Take your time," he murmured. Emily kept reading. The second half of the letter shifted. Her mother wrote about regret, not her own life, but Emily's. She wrote about how Emily had always taken care of everyone else, but rarely herself. How she hoped Emily would find a place, or a person, where she could finally rest her heart instead of protecting it. And then the line that made Emily's breath stop. "There is someone you left behind, Emily. Someone you loved more than you allowed yourself to admit. I hope you find your way back to him, not because you owe him anything, but because your heart deserves a home." Emily stared at the words, the candlelight trembling across the page. Her mother had known. All along. Even when Emily herself had tried to pretend she didn't. Tears filled her eyes, thick and blurring the ink. Ethan watched her, his expression unreadable but full of something deep. What does it say?" he asked softly. Emily swallowed hard and lowered the letter. "It says," she hesitated, breath shaking. "It says she wanted me to find my way back to the person I left behind." Ethan's eyes flickered, a brief flash of emotion crossing his face before he masked it with care. "And who did she mean?" he asked quietly. Emily looked at him. Not away, not down, but directly at him. For the first time since she had come back. "You," she whispered. Ethan inhaled sharply. The room felt impossibly still, the only sound the distant thunder rolling through the hills. Emily wiped a tear from her cheek. "She knew," she said. "She always knew how I felt. Even when I tried to hide it. Even when I convinced myself leaving was the right thing." Ethan's voice came out low and fragile. "Emily, why did you hide it? Why didn't you tell me?" Her lips trembled. "Because I thought loving you meant holding you back," she whispered. "I thought you needed someone braver. Someone steadier. Someone who didn't run when things felt too big." Ethan's jaw tightened, and he shook his head slowly. "You weren't holding me back," he said. "You were the one thing that made me feel grounded. You were the safe part, Em. You always were." Her breath hitched. "But I left," she whispered. "You were hurting," he said. "And I never blamed you for that. Not once." Emily looked down at the letter again. "She wanted me to come home," she said softly. "She wanted me to stop running." Ethan moved slightly closer, his voice gentle but filled with emotion he could no longer disguise. "And what do you want, Emily?" She didn't answer right away. Her heart felt like it was beating in every part of her body. In her fingertips, in her throat, in the fragile space between them. She looked at him slowly, the truth forming before she could stop it. I think I want to stay," she whispered. "But I don't know if I have the right to ask you to let me." Ethan reached out. Carefully. And brushed a tear from her cheek with the back of his knuckles. "You don't have to ask," he said softly. "You just have to want it." Emily leaned into his touch before she even realized she was moving. But before either of them could speak again, a loud crack of lightning exploded outside. So close the walls trembled. Emily gasped and instinctively grabbed Ethan's arm. He held her steady. And that was when they both heard it. A sound beneath the storm. Not thunder. Not wind. A voice. Calling Emily's name from outside the house. Emily froze, her hand still gripping Ethan's arm. The storm outside roared, but beneath it, faint, wavering, fragile, she heard it again. Her name. Soft. Almost carried by the wind. But unmistakable. Ethan stood, eyes narrowing slightly, listening carefully. His voice was calm, but alert. "Stay here," he said. Emily shook her head immediately. "No. I'm coming with you. Emily. I'm not hiding. Not tonight." The firmness in her voice surprised even her. Maybe it was the letter in her hand. Maybe it was the storm. Maybe it was finally facing everything she had run from. Ethan didn't argue further. He simply nodded and grabbed a raincoat from the hook beside the door, handing her one too. They stepped outside into the heavy rain. The wind whipped their coats, and the smell of wet earth filled the air. "Who would even be out here?" Emily yelled over the storm. "I don't know," Ethan answered. "But stay close." Lightning flashed, illuminating the yard for a brief white second. That was when Emily saw a figure standing near the large oak tree across the drive, small, hunched slightly, clutching something in their hands. Emily's breath caught. "Ethan. I know who that is." He looked at her sharply. "Who?" She took a step forward. "It's Adam." Ethan's shoulders relaxed only a fraction. Adam had been her mother's caregiver during the last months, gentle, patient, kind-hearted. He had always spoken to Emily like her grief was something sacred. "Adam?" Ethan called out. "Are you okay?" The figure lifted his head slowly. I'm sorry to come like this," Adam called back, voice trembling from cold and emotion. "I didn't mean to frighten anyone." Emily rushed forward, Ethan right beside her. "What are you doing out here?" she asked gently. "You're drenched." Adam shook his head, tears mixing with the rain. I tried to come earlier," he said. "But I sat in my car for a long time. I wasn't sure if I should bother you tonight." "You're not bothering me," Emily said softly. "What's wrong?" Adam took a shaky breath. "When your mother passed," he began, "there were a few things she asked me to hold on to. Just until the right moment." Emily's heart tightened. "She gave you something?" He nodded and lifted a small wooden box, dark oak, polished, the kind Emily recognized instantly. It was her mother's memory box. The one she had kept beside her bed for years. The one she only opened on the most meaningful occasions. Adam held it out with trembling hands. "She told me," he whispered, "to give this to you only when I felt you were ready to receive it. And Emily, tonight, when the storm started, something told me it was time." Emily stared at the box, her breath catching in her throat. She reached for it with both hands, the wood cold against her palms. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for caring about her. And for coming tonight." Adam nodded, eyes filled with sympathy and warmth. "She loved you more than anything in this world," he said softly. "She wanted you to move forward, not backward. To heal. To choose happiness when it comes to you." He looked at Ethan briefly, just long enough for Emily to notice. Then he turned back. "I'll leave you both now," he said. "Please be safe." He slipped back into the rain, disappearing toward his car. Emily stood there in the storm, clutching the memory box as if it held the last pieces of her mother's voice. Ethan stepped closer. "Do you want to go inside?" he asked gently. "You're shaking." Emily nodded. They returned to the warmth of the candlelit room, water dripping from their coats. Ethan placed another candle on the table, its glow softening the shadows. Emily sat slowly on the couch, holding the box on her lap. "I haven't seen this in years," she whispered. She never let anyone open it. Ethan sat beside her. "Do you want to open it now?" he asked softly. Emily hesitated. "I'm scared," she admitted. "What if it hurts? What if it makes everything feel heavier?" Ethan shook his head gently. "It won't," he said. "Not tonight. Not with everything she already told you." Emily ran her fingers along the lid. "Will you stay with me while I open it?" she whispered. He nodded instantly. "Always." Emily exhaled slowly and lifted the lid. Inside were small, delicate pieces of her life she had forgotten. A birthday card she made in 2nd grade. A tiny seashell from a beach trip. A photo of her and her mother laughing under the summer sun. A dried flower her mother had once tucked behind her ear. And at the very bottom, another note. Shorter. Written shakier. But still unmistakably her mother's handwriting. Emily opened it carefully. "If you are reading this, then your heart has started to find its way home. Don't run from love, my sweet girl. Let it come to you. And when it does, reach back." A tear fell onto the paper, but the ink didn't blur. Ethan watched her, his expression tender. "Emily," he whispered. She looked at him through tears. But for the first time in months, they weren't only from grief. There was something else there too. Something warm. Something steady. Something returning. "I came back here without knowing why," she whispered. "But now I think I do." Ethan swallowed, voice low. "Tell me." Emily reached out, her hand trembling slightly, and took his. "I think I came back," she said softly, "because my heart remembered something my mind tried to forget." Ethan's breath caught. "And what was that?" Emily squeezed his hand gently. "You," she whispered. "I remembered you." Ethan closed his eyes for a moment, emotion tightening his features. When he opened them again, his voice was barely a breath. "Then don't leave again, Emily." She shook her head softly. "I'm not going anywhere." The storm outside faded into a distant hum. The candlelight flickered gently around them. And for the first time in a long, painful year, Emily felt a quiet peace settle into her chest. Not because the grief was gone. Not because everything was fixed. But because she had finally stopped running. And love, unexpected, familiar, steady, had reached out to her first. This time, she reached back.